With the Grand Magic Festival on the horizon, no one can seem to think about anything else in episode 4 of Wistoria Wand and Sword. As Will spends his days trying to get as far away from being pulled into the festival as possible, fate may have something different in store for him. As new rivals make themselves known, and with tensions running higher than they've ever run before, it's the perfect time for us to jump into Wistoria Wand and Sword, episode 4, called The Eve of the Grand Festival. As episode 4 opens, we find ourselves at Regarden Magical Academy. Will opens the episode letting us all know that of the 12,000 credits that are offered at Regarden Magical Academy, 7,000 credits is what's needed to graduate to the Upper Institute and become a Magia Bander. As Will is saying this, we're taken into a combat class, where Scion Ulster, the Fire Wielder, and Colette Loire, the Earth Wielder and Will's close friend, can be seen battling and taking down giant golems created by their teacher. At the end of each of their battles, their teacher advises them that they both pass the course. But with all of their classmates still standing around watching, Will Surfort has yet to beat his golem. Will dodges the golem and begins looking for an opening. As he goes in to strike the golem with his fist, Will can hear his classmates in the distance saying how he's not a respectable student because he can't use magic, and Will ends up getting distracted. In that split second that Will gets distracted, the golem takes advantage and punches Will across the room. As Will lays on the ground, he can hear his classmates further chastising him and the fact that he can't use magic. Will can also hear them calling him a magicless, no talent, and a total loser. As Will, who seems a bit dejected, starts to get himself off the ground, he looks out ahead of him and sees other students, one being a lightning wielder and the other being an elf, completely obliterating the same golems that just took Will out in one hit. It's at this time that we learn that the lightning wielder's name is Lihana Owenzaus and the elf's name is Wignall Lindor, and that they both passed their exams. We also learn that Lihana has 10,100 credits and Wignall has 10,075 credits. As Lihana and Wignall have passed their exams, one final student appears, one who wields ice magic. This student then proceeds to produce a spell that takes out more golems than anyone else while simultaneously taking out every remaining golem in the room. We learn that this student's name is Julius Reinberg. He too passes the exam, and he holds 10,048 credit. As Julius, the Ice Wielder, begins to make his way over to Lihana and Wignall, Lihana speaks to both Wignall and Julius, ever so slightly impressed that they are both fairly close to keeping up with her. Julius, coming off as both smug and self-righteous, immediately opens his mouth to declare war at the Grand Magic Festival on both Lihana and Wignall. Julius throws a rose he created out of ice at Lihana and Wignall to further express his intent, but Wignall immediately shreds the rose to bits with his elven magic, and then Lihana decimates all of the remaining shards with her lightning magic. Wignall looks back at Julius and lets him know that he looks forward to the challenge before he and Lihana go to leave. As Lihana and Wignall are exiting the exam space, students can be heard talking about them and discussing how these three are what the Upper Institute students should look like. Lihana Owenzaus, dubbed Miss Perfect, Wignall Lindor, known as the Wonder Elf, and Julius Reinberg, hailed as the Ice Master, highly respected and shown so much admiration by other students, as they are the only 3 students in the entire academy with over 10,000 credits. Will, watching everything that just happened, begins to explain that credits are basically a way for students to be judged. And at this point, Will just doesn't have enough credits to graduate or advance to the Upper Institute. He only has 5,405 of the 7,000 credits needed to ascend the tower, and this year is his final year of school. As Will sits saddened by this thought, and I'm sure the thought of not being able to see Elfie, Julius Reinberg, the Ice Wielder, and one of the top 3 students, approaches Will with 2 of his friends just to tell Will that he's in the way. Julius then calls Will a laggard before walking off. As Julius and his friends leave, Julius's friends can be heard praising him and confirming that they are certain that Julius will be scouted by one of the Magia Vander factions at the Grand Magic Festival. It's from here that we make our way to Regarden Academy's cafeteria, where Colette is trying to motivate Will. She knows that Will does not have enough credits to graduate based on his writing and praxis alone. So she tells Will that his best shot right now is to get scouted at the Grand Magic Festival. But Will, thinking to himself, already knows that everyone tries to turn their luck around at the Grand Magic Festival as a last-ditch effort for some to ascend the tower. Will begins to explain that the Grand Magic Festival is an event held every 2 years at Regarden Magical Academy. During this event, there are multiple contests to participate in, and scouts come down from the tower to find talented new recruits. Colette cuts in to further explain that the factions that are in the tower, the ones that will be attending Grand Magic Festival this year, are the Lightning Lord's Wand, Thorzeus Fauci, the Sacred Elf Wand, Elif Conan, the Flame Emperor's Wand, Incendia Barum, and the Ice Maiden's Wand, Albus Fina. Colette also mentions that there's also the Light Faction's Wand, Mysterious Noah, but the Light Faction won't be attending the event this year. Colette continues to try to get Will excited behind the idea of joining the Grand Magic Festival, explaining that he really only needs to impress one faction to make his way to the Upper Institute. She further explains that there will also be watchers at the event, so even if Will does not get selected by a faction, he could get selected by the watchers. And even though we as viewers know that the Watchers exist, since we met Iris Churchill, who herself is a Watcher last episode, Will does not know this and suggests to Colette that Watchers are simply one of the 7 legends of the school. He then puts himself down a bit as a no talent and says that it would be best for him to work behind the scenes of the event. Will believes in his heart that if he enters, the event will just be turned into an average sporting event, and he seems as though he doesn't want to take away from the prestige of the Grand Magic Festival. We then get a quick flashback to Will's second year, where he did join the festival, and people in the stands actually threw trash at him. Will has still not recovered emotionally from that event. After leaving the cafeteria, Colette continues to try to convince Will to join the Grand Magic Festival, emphasizing that even if Will doesn't get chosen to ascend the tower, there are still many other avenues that he can pursue. He pushes and reminds Will of just how talented he is, but Will continues to hold firm on his stance that he will not be joining the festival. As Will and Colette stand by their lockers going back and forth about Will joining the Grand Magic Festival, Colette notices something odd about one of the lockers close by. Upon closer inspection, she takes note that a barrier has been placed over one of the lockers. Colette considers breaking the barrier with force, but she doesn't want to make a scene. Instead, she asks Kiki, Will's familiar, to break open the barrier. As Kiki breaks down the barrier and Will and Colette take a look inside the locker, they're shocked to find a staircase in there. Curiosity ends up getting the better of them, and Will and Colette decide to see what's down that staircase. As soon as the curious duo and Kiki make their way down the stairs, the first thing that can be heard is a man yelling over a large crowd of people, telling them to place their bets. Then you can hear students placing bets on which of the top students in the school they believe will win the Grand Magic Festival. Will and Colette are completely stunned to have found an underground gambling event on school grounds. And Colette, more than Will, finds it completely ridiculous that the students would be holding an event like this, and seems to take offense to the fact that the students are taking advantage of the fact that the faculty do not monitor the locker areas closely. But Will and Colette, still extremely interested in what they found, continue to walk around and scope out the area and everything that's going on. As soon as they begin to walk, Will and Colette immediately run into Scion and his 2 friends. The second Scion sees them, he opens his mouth to insult Will. And just as swiftly, Colette jumps in and threatens Scion before he even has a chance to complete his statement to Will. Scion, completely stunned by Colette's threat, stands silently. So Will decides to break the ice and ask if Scion and his friends found this place by accident too. Scion's two friends clear the air, though, by making fun of Scion, suggesting in a roundabout way that he sought this place out. They also suggest that Scion is flustered about the fact that, as the number 4 top student in the school, the top 3 students don't notice him or pay him any attention at all. Before his friends have a chance to say anything else, Scion spins around and threatens them so aggressively that everyone else in the room below, who was loudly gambling, all stopped what they were doing to look up and see what the commotion was. Scion's friends, taking him very seriously, both back off and apologize for antagonizing Scion. But Colette, taking notice of how flustered Scion is because the big 3 don't notice him, begins to make fun of Scion. But due to everyone looking at him, Scion tries to regain his composure, emphasizing that the only thing the big 3 have over him are credits he lost in writing, and that none of the big 3 have won the Grand Magic Festival just yet, so he is not concerned. Scion explains that he has been practicing his spell work for a long time, and he is just as skilled as them. Scion then, annoyed at the whole situation, storms off as his friends chase behind him. It's from this point that we cut away from the betting area and into a class that Will and Colette just attended that's ending. Will gets up to leave class, and Colette thinks that he might be heading into the dungeon, so she asks to join him. However, Will lets her know that he's actually on his way to work at a second job at Gina's Tavern. Colette, having wanted to spend time with Will, pouts as Will leaves to head to work. But we can next see Will on Slumley Street, which exists on the outskirts of Herbisry Garden. Will explains that this is the area where the dwarves, who are generally exploited by those with magic, come to drink after long days of work in the mines. Will expresses that these are the times that you can hear the dwarves' laughter ringing throughout the area. And now Will, a fan of the dwarves and friend to the dwarves, can be seen serving them food at Gina's. And during the time that Will is serving food, we learn that he has to work because the tuition at Bregarden Magical Academy is not free, and he's not eligible for any type of scholarships. Mr. Donan, a dwarf and someone who seems to be very close to Will, asks Will about joining the Grand Magic Festival. Apparently, the winner of the festival receives money that would go a long way towards paying Will's tuition. But Will tells Mr. Donan that he really cannot join the festival. It's at this moment that Gina begins to dig into Will because he's not working fast enough, and Rosti, Will's roommate, is moving at the speed of light to help customers. Will thanks Rosti, as Rosti doesn't usually work at Gina's, but he has been a huge help. And at the same time, all of the dwarves come over to cheer on Will and thank him, as they view Will like a brother to the dwarves and love having his company. As the night drones on, many leave the tavern, and things are really starting to slow down at Gina's. Rosti and Will begin to chat as they're cleaning dishes, and Rosti suggests to Will that he could probably find a better and higher paying job if he needs it, so that he doesn't have to struggle as much with his tuition. But Will doesn't want that and truly respects the dwarves. Will also enjoys their company and camaraderie, and he feels accepted by them. During this conversation, Will gets distracted by a piece of dropped silverware. He bends down to pick it up, and right as he does this, Julius Reinberg, the ice wielder and one of the top 3 students at Regarden, walks into the tavern with his 2 friends. Julius immediately starts talking down about the tavern, but his friends let him know that it's one of the only places open this late. Julius has a disgusted look on his face, and you can feel the energy in the entire tavern change. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. As all of this is happening, Will, not knowing that Julius has entered the tavern, stands back up and immediately catches Julius's eye. Julius talks crap about the tavern as he asks Will if he works there, and this immediately irritates Will. Julius continues on his rant about the tavern and the dwarves, calling them barbarians directly to their faces, as there were dwarves still in the tavern who could hear him, including Gina and Mr. Donan, who Will cares greatly for. Mr. Donan, who took great offense to what Julius said, stands up to address Julius before being stopped by another dwarf in the tavern. Even seeing this, Julius continues to talk down to the dwarves, calling them immigrants who invaded to the land and telling them to be grateful before Julius dropped himself into a seat. Will gives us a quick history lesson explaining that the celestial host was able to destroy the dwarves' world a long time ago, but some dwarves managed to escape to this world. Will also explain that unlike elves, dwarves are scorned and looked down upon, and the way that society is set up, a dwarf can't lay their hands on a mage, or else that dwarf's standing in society would be greatly jeopardized. It is in this moment that we're reminded that in this world, magic reigns at the top of all else, and that can easily be seen in the way that others freely discriminate against dwarves. Julius, still seated, is screaming for someone to bring him a plate and a beverage. Drinks are brought out, and then Rossi returns to bring Julius the food he requested. As Rossi is walking away, Julius and his friends make fun of the food placed in front of them, calling it slop and saying they would never eat it. They just can't seem to help themselves from making fun of the dwarves, their food, and their tavern. As Julius begins to go in on the dwarves' hygiene, Will has had enough and begins to remove his apron. Will walks out from behind the bar as Julius and his friends continue to laugh, and he begins to head in their direction. As Will makes his way to Julius's table and everyone turns to look at him, Will asks Julius to take back everything that they've said about the dwarves. Will explains how much work and care the dwarves put into everything that they do and tells Julius not to make fun of them. Julius, continuing to be a jerk through and through, decides instead of apologizing, he's going to kick his food at Will. The food floats through the air and lands directly in the middle of Will's shirt, but Will is unfazed. Julius's friends stand up and continue to poke fun at Will, but before they can even say anything, Will has planted both of their heads into the ground, while at the same time flipping over their table and causing drinks to spill all over Julius. With both of Julius's friends knocked out cold, Will stands back up to address Julius, telling him that he and his friends have been more savage than he's ever seen of the dwarves. Julius, enraged and covered in drinks, is highly insulted by everything that Will has said and done. In his rage, Julius begins to cover the entirety of the inside of Gina's tavern in a sheet of ice. He then starts throwing ice spells at Will. But Will, attempting to protect any dwarf still remaining in the tavern, begins to defend against the ice attacks. Julius, from here, continues to make bigger and bigger ice attacks, attempting to restrain Will. And just as Julius has cornered Will and believes he has won and proven himself to be better than Will, Will looks Julius right in the eye, completely unbothered by the attack, and not seeming to be in any level of pain at all. Looking into Will's eyes, Julius decides that freezing Will to the wall of Gina's isn't nearly entertaining enough for him. Julius tells Will to enter the Grand Magic Festival so that he can embarrass Will on a grander arena with everyone watching. Will, more unfazed by Julius's magic than we originally thought, breaks away from the ice holding him to the wall with ease and agrees to join the Grand Magic Festival. Julius states that when he wins, he will have Will kicked out of the academy. But Will turns around and tells Julius that when Will wins, he will make Julius apologize to Gina and Mr. Donan and all of the dwarves. And this is where episode 4 of Wistoria Wand and Sword ends. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all for episode 5.